welcome back to BLOCKTV, where it is time for cryptonomics, and once again, China, and its promise to beat Libra at its own game. Now, the People's Bank of China is charging full speed ahead with its digital currency plans, hoping to beat Facebook's Libra to the market. Now, a dedicated team from the central bank's digital currency research lab is now developing, according to reports, the system in a closed-door environment away from the China's central bank downtown Beijing headquarters. That's according to a person close to the bank and as reported by CoinDesk. With more on what the People's Republic is promising to achieve and whatever can be confirmed information-wise out of there, I'm joined in studio by Asha Westrup-Evans, BLOCKTV's senior correspondent. Asha, firstly, they're going to make the deadline?
Well, look, they seem to be saying they're going to be ready by November of this year. We're talking a November 11th date has been floated as a potential. Again, though, a lot of this is coming from reports out of state-run news agencies, most notably the Shanghai Securities News. So that's a state-backed paper. You think they've probably got a pretty good line on things.
They
but
probably have the best source.
Probably, but we're not having the confirmed,
okay,
exactly,
yes.
the confirmed things. So they claim November 11th as a potential date for launch. Whether that date gets achieved, certainly it seems ahead of the originally pitched first quarter 2020 Libra launch.
Sure.
But I think what most interesting to note here, Yael, is the fact that they are touting this as a sort of Libra counter, that they're really setting this up as a potential, alternative to Libra and the sort of first mover advantage that could have.
Although, come on, in a time where the trade war is so prevalent, that just fits right into another narrative.
Certainly,
of China, U.S. We're in this race on various levels, and we're
certainly so, and that is really pushing to that narrative of the Chinese maintaining financial sovereignty and financial control, and that was backed by statements that came from Mu Chengchun, head of the PBOC's Digital Currency Research Institute. We can take a look at what he said here, or he said, and I quote, "Why is the central bank still doing such a digital currency today when electronic payment methods are so developed? It is to protect our monetary sovereignty and legal currency status. We need to plan ahead for a rainy day." Now, if that's not an ominous statement, I don't know what is, but also indicative of the way the Chinese are framing this. They're looking long-term. They're looking at the potential future. Yes, they've got WeChat. Yes, they've got Alipay, and those are prevalent, highly prevalent and pervasive throughout all of China. Why do they need to bother with their own digital currency? Because they want to maintain that control, Yael. They want to make sure that behind the scenes, the PBOC are still the ones pulling all the levers and being in control, and moving outside the domestic market, talking international markets. This has the potential to make some big changes. Big change.
This is entirely a game changer. If it indeed happens, to tell you the truth, again, I'm wagering a bet. I have a feeling that when the Chinese are saying something, they usually do it.
Certainly.
Then it usually happens. How is this different than Libra? Because they can put it in a headline, they can sell the story, but
right.
what are the similarities and differences between the two?
Of course, the key thing notably is that this is state-backed. This is a central bank digital currency. They're not even pretending that this is a true crypto in the sense of anything that we've seen before in terms of decentralization. This is not backed by a reserve of currencies. This is the currency.
Bank of China.
Exactly. This is the currency. It's being issued by the Bank of China, being distributed to commercial banks, and then out for public use. So this means that you will not need the physical paper-backed money anymore. Doesn't exist. That's a thing of the past. That's 20th century Yale. Here we are in the 21st century, and we need digital currency for a digital era.
They're digitizing their national currency.
Exactly, and that has massive implications in terms of particularly that international trade element. Because one important factor, remember here, is that in the realm of international trade, the physical trading of currency, forex exchanging, incredibly important. It's kept the US in power in its role as the monetarily dominant, the dollar is the monetarily dominant unit of account for trade up until now. Should this happen, should the change occur, then the Chinese could have a potential advantage there because of their digital currency first mover
entirely.
advantage.
And I want to touch on, before we look at the other part of the globe, AliChat, WePay, those are very substantial platforms that exist and are working very well. They're basically now are going to be, well, they're not entirely government owned, but they're playing in. How much of a play in is that? They've been mass adopted, haven't they?
Yes, they have been mass adopted. They're used for the vast majority of payments. I believe, if my numbers are correct off the top of my head, that they account for up to 90% of day-to-day transactions in China in just terms of daily payments. I mean, that's the degree to which this is pervasive. Where credit cards are used in Western nations, in China, we're talking mobile payments. It is far and away
way ahead on that one.
So
they're way ahead on that one when it comes to population.
And it doesn't seem that China is looking to usurp that role, but they're actually working with them, because WeChat and Alipay will be the first users to actually get access to this digital yuan as a backing to allow them to continue their digital payments moving forward. So it's a streamlining of an existing system, but also a reasserting of the levers of control by the People's Bank of China.
Entirely. Now, let's go, back in the farm, so we say. Back in the United States, I think the one thing that's very evident is that, let me rephrase this, the idea that do the Americans understand when it comes just to the process, to the digitizing of a nation, that they are not there yet and they're quite behind. But also, interestingly enough, somebody actually stated something.
Exactly. So rather than me tell you whether they are or not, let's hear it from Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell's mouth as he spoke this weekend in Zurich, Switzerland. Let's take a listen.
Of course, we're following very carefully the whole question of digital currencies. It's not something that we're actively considering, other central banks more than we are. And for us, it raises significant issues that we'd want to see, carefully resolved. For example, if you think about one a currency that was for the United States or for, frankly, a multinational currency, it would really need to be cyber secure because, it's one thing to be able to counterfeit paper currency. It's another thing to be able to hack into a cyber currency and create with a computer however much of it you want. So the cyber issues are quite daunting. It's also not clear to us that there's really demand for this. Consumers have plenty of payment options. They're not clamoring for this. I don't want to sound like I'm ruling it out, but I think there really are. There's another question, too, which is if people are leaving their money in a cyber currency and holding it there, they're not putting it in a bank. What happens with banks is people deposit their money and banks lend the money out. So what will happen to intermediation, the whole intermediation process? What will happen if everyone's just, investing in this cyber currency? So I would say, look, we're in favor of financial innovation. We're following these things very carefully, but we don't see digital currencies from a central bank as something happening in the near term.
Wow.
Lots to break down there.
Yeah, I'm trying to contain myself just because the notion of somebody in 2019 talking about cyber currency, where nothing happens outside of this.
Right.
At all.
Exactly.
I'm going to let you, first of all, were there reactions to this?
Yeah, no, seemingly not substantive as yet. There might have been smaller reactions around the sphere, but there's no one's really come out stating this because this is more of the same, Yael. This is more of what we've heard from the US in the past. We need to think, we need to be slow, we need to be careful. And you know what? I don't think that's an entirely bad attitude. Something, the move fast and break things model of Facebook has not always proven to be the best in the longer term. That being said, it seems the US is really set to be left behind in this trend as they're just not willing to move forward with this. The language they're still using, as we heard from Jerome Powell.
I want to touch on the language because to me, the one of the moments there when, when the bank lends you with the physical action that he actually does, Powell, lends you money. It's,
when was the last time a bank lended you a sack of cash? Loans are all done online these days. We managed to keep our entire banking system secure in a digital format, and people seem pretty reliant and reliable on that. Why is moving to a digital currency, even in the Chinese sense of it, we're not even talking a full cryptocurrency backed by a blockchain, just a digitized currency, so beyond the realm of US comprehension? I'm not entirely sure why regulators are unwilling to move ahead at this point and even considering it. And
that brings us to the first point of cryptonomics today, as you rightfully said. Once the Chinese launch their digital coin, it's a game changer because I think then everybody will understand.
Exactly.
Asher Westrup-Evans, BLOCKTV senior correspondent, thank you for that one. That was Cryptonomics. We were BLOCKTV. We'll be right back.
For more news and updates, follow us on Twitter.